welcome to another edition of Joe's Rod Shop podcast. We've got such a cool week ahead of us. You know, my friend Simon White, he's from No Regrets Tattoos. He's responsible for probably 90% of my tattoos. And I used to love sitting with him. We always have these philosophical conversations. And he always said to me that the outcome of anything determines your attitude going into it. And it's always so true. So, yeah, I've got a hectic week ahead of me. Actually, hectic 2 weeks. And so you've got two ways of looking at it. I can sit and go, oh, man, I've got a hectic 2 weeks ahead of me. Or you can go, wow, I have got such a cool, hectic 2 weeks coming up. It's going to be amazing. It's all about our attitude and how we move forward. All right, but onto the show. Okay, now before I introduce today's guest, who is amazing, okay, you're going to love this episode. It's going to be great. I need to tell you about Thursday's episode that's coming out, okay? Now, overalling is one of our favorite shows of all time. Chip Foose, okay, it is the show that I think has probably created more petrol heads and more hot rod guys and more car builders. It's defined car building shows forever. That show was the idea of my guest. His name is Butt Britzman, but it's a really cool guy. I mean, really, this is such a great interview. And he's the man that came up for this idea for overalling, and he's been behind the show, and he tells us the story. There's some great stories behind the scenes of him arguing with Chip Foose and all stuff. It is an episode you do not want to miss. It's going to be absolutely great. Now, on to today's show. Now, I don't know if he is the... I need to check, because I don't know if is he the quickest or the fastest street legal car in the world. His name is Tom Bailey. Okay, now, I came across Tom Bailey for the first time a few years ago when the internet completely blew up with a photo. I think it's a 69 Camaro Pro Street driving in the rain during Hot Rod Magazine's Drag Week. I saw that photo and I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, okay? I have been following Tom Bailey in his career since then, and I've got him on the show, and he tells us everything behind it. So without further ado, okay, get ready for Mr. Tom Bailey. Mr. Tom Bailey, thank you so much for being on the show. It's an absolute honor to have you.
Oh, glad to help out.
I have to start this off. So a few years ago, I'm following the Hot Rod Speed Drag Week, and this video comes up of a gold Camaro with a trailer running behind it in the rain, and that was your car. That was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Or the dumbest, you're not sure which.
Oh man, that was absolutely crazy. Seeing you guys on the road like that was phenomenal, and I fell in love with your car immediately. You and I've followed you since from that day on. Absolutely phenomenal. How did you get into everything?
Well, I raced when I was a kid, and then obviously you have kids and grow up and don't have any money, so then there's several years in there where I didn't do anything, and then as the kids started to get a little bit older, then to go back into it, and I bought one of those damn eBay cars and went out and got it. It wasn't what it was supposed to be, and yada yada, the same old story. But then but when working on that car, it was like, then I got issue a hot rod and read about Drag Week in Hot Rod, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, you actually drive your car, you race your car, and it's like, oh, in a week I can get like a year's worth of racing in. And so that was like the start of the whole thing. And I said it makes for a dual purpose car, and so that was the start, which was probably 2007. But
yeah,
first time I actually ran Drag Week was 2010 because of all the delays getting the car done and everything else. So
how was the setup between getting the, I mean, because for the guys that don't know drag week, so basically, you've got a full drag car. It's pro street, am I right?
Correct.
So a full pro street car, but you have to drive from one venue to the next each day. So you're racing and you're driving to the next venue. So the car has to be road legal at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, which obviously, I mean, depends on the state you're in the United States, but for the most part, I mean, Michigan, where I live, like pretty much you show up with a certificate of title and then proof of insurance, and they say, okay, here you go, here's a license plate, you're good. So,
And how much horsepower were you running at that stage?
the gold car is 3,500 horse.
Yes.
So,
And how's that drive? I mean, you must have hit traffic and all that type of stuff. How's it taking it on a long road like that? I mean, because the car's built for short spurts, isn't it?
yeah, but it's a lot of trial and error over the years. Like I mean, the very first year when I did it, I had all kinds of issues with cooling. In the car, I just couldn't get to run cool enough. And then I think the year after it was charging, that I always had issue with charging because you got all these electric fans and everything that's keeping everything cool. And so it's just you move from one weak link to the next and you sort that stuff out to be able to get it to live longer. And now, I mean, it's pretty much whatever, drive it all the time around town and everything. It's pretty docile. So.
And do you detune it when you hit the road, and then set it back up each time you get to a race?
No, like with the gold car, it's all boost reference. So as long as, I mean, you don't have the boost controller on, so it's making 1,300 horse on the road in typical street fashion. So, and because of that boost referencing, I mean, nothing really changes. It's not seeing the bigger boost numbers, so it's not going to those other tables. So.
And now you've got the white car out at the same time as well, right?
Yeah, the white car 2.0, that's a little different. We do change the tune-up because it runs on alcohol at the drag strip, so, and pump gas on the street. So basically that's swapping. We swapped a couple valves on the fuel system to switch it over to street, and then we load. I mean, it's the Holly Dominator, so it holds 4 different tunes. So then we switch it over to the street tune, and you're good to go. So.
Now, for someone like yourself that's now grown up in the industry, how has drag racing changed over the years? I mean, even if we take it now from 2007 to now, is the technology and everything, is there massive changes constantly happening in it?
Oh, without a doubt. Like, I mean, fuel injection and all the aftermarket stuff has changed so much. Like when I first started and you were talking about anything on the street. I mean, it could be as simple as one of the high-end racing alternators. And you're like, well, how does this do on the street? They're like, well, we don't know. Like, it's a racing alternator. I'm like, well, but I need it. Like, I need it to last for 1,000 miles. Oh, well, if it does, will you come back and let us know? That way we know that it lasts. It's like, okay. So, so the same thing with every component. It's the same as like the high-end cooling fans or whatever, the big 16-volt stuff. It's like, everything was developed for short duration, same as a transmission. Like all that stuff was short duration. And over the years, it's got to where like now, through trial and error of everybody that does this, like there's so many parts out there that it's pretty easy. Like, I mean, the big joke is like, an 8-second street car now is what used to be an 11 or 12-second street car 10 years ago, because it's so easy to do that. The components are out there, the technology's out there, and that's it. I mean, to get to a 6 or a 5-second, yep, you're still a little bit more on the edge, but it actually is, the durability of the equipment is out there. I mean, the lifter technology's changed so much. Like all of that stuff has came so far that like it's really not that big a deal to say I drive it 1,000 miles. So,
and sorry, I've got a question that just jumps into my head with this whole week. When do you guys sleep? Because I mean, I've watched some of the video. You guys are basically just either on the road or on the drag strip. When do you guys get during that week? When do you get time to sleep and stuff?
Yeah, in a perfect day, you can make it to the hotel by 9, 10 at night, and then you can sleep till 6 in the morning. So if you don't have that perfect day, then Sometimes you don't sleep. So like the one you're talking about in 18. I mean, that's it. Like we lifted a ring landing in Charlotte, and we didn't have spares because whatever. Like number one, I had both cars in the trailer. I really wasn't planning on using that car. And then I was like, oh, I'll just run for a couple days. I had another event I was going to go do with the white car. And but then once we got into it and everything, then we're like, oh, well, we're staying. Well, so lift a ring landing. Well, we didn't have spare pistons with us or anything like that. So we had a guy drive from Michigan, which was a 9-hour drive, to get down there after we did it. So we had to wait at the track, had everything tore apart. He rolled in 2 a.m. or whatever with it. So we changed the piston, and then we had to drive all night to get to the track. And we showed up directly to the track the next day to make a pass. So, and that's some of your days are like that. So, I mean, it's kind of a conditioning thing that, like, the more years you do it, the, I guess the more conditioned you are for it.
Yeah.
So, but until you've done it, or that first time doing it, it is the freaking hardest thing ever, because it's like, just like you said, there's no time to sleep. Like you're always trying to get this piece of shit to the next place. So like, so that's your 24/7 job. And like, so after you do it for a few years, it's like not sleeping a night is actually not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah. But it must get you by the end of the week. I mean, you've got physical fatigue, you've got mental fatigue going in there. You've been fighting this car the whole time. You've been on the road trying to concentrate there. And if you're any person like me, you might, like you said, you might get to the hotel at like 9 o'clock at night and you can sleep till 6, but your brain is working. You're rebuilding that motor in your head. You're rebuilding the runs. You're thinking of every aspect that's going to happen the next morning at the same time.
No, maybe the first night or so you're thinking that. By the second or third night, nope, you're sleeping. You're not thinking of anything. You're at the point where you're shut off. So
your brain just goes, no.
So the fatigue set in enough that you are getting sleep. So.
Now, what I must ask you, what is your day job? I mean, you've built one of the fastest street cars in the world. All right. What is your background? I mean, like I said, you've been racing, but what's your day job? How does all of this come together? Because I know from a South African perspective, these guys are going, how do you get there?
Yep. No, this is my day job has nothing to do with it. I do security systems like burglar alarms, fire alarms.
Really?
So for like the big retailers like Walmart and Target and stuff. So like strictly a hobby, like just one of those things. Now we actually just delivered yesterday was a massive CNC machine. So like now we're going to start doing more custom billet stuff, blocks and heads and different stuff in that or whatever, like is a whole nother company. But and that really that stems from lack of availability of parts. Like as everything starts to gobble each other up and venture capitalists keeps buying everything. And Holly is an example. I mean, how many, there used to be, 30 companies or something that are all now under the Holly umbrella. So obviously like a lot of research and development, I think that goes away as they expand in that direction. So I think there's opportunity for someone that's just doing limited production type engine parts. So, and that's my goal with that part of it, but that's completely separate from my day job, which is fire alarms.
So I've never actually thought about that because like you said, as the big conglomerates start taking over, the focus goes more towards big moving item, fast moving items instead of speciality. More than anything else. I mean, I had
a bottom line too. Like, I mean, R&D costs money. So like,
exactly.
I mean, is there going to be some R&D? Absolutely. But how much is that going to be cut back when now all of a sudden you got 30 brand names under one umbrella? So
exactly. What brand is actually pulling forward more than anything else, because like you said, do you do the research to build a product for a few thousand people, or do you do the research to build a product for a few 100,000 people? That's a numbers game at the end of it. I've to be honest, until now, I've never thought of the impact that change in the industry can actually have on the racing aspect more than anything. And like you saying, there's more or times change. Because this is the thing that blows my mind. Where you said to build an 8-second car is now just as easy as building a 12. It was a few years ago building a 12-second car. There's constant development happening from multiple companies. Okay, or everyone is guys are doing to try and get all that working together to find the perfect package, if I want to put it that way. I mean, that must be tiring more than anything else, and hard, because you've got in the US. I mean, look, we sit on the sideline and basically look at what you guys do. Yeah, that's all we've got from our side. But you guys are in there. Are you getting at least approached by companies to go, listen, this is we want to help work and develop with yourself and building up and trying to get cars and stuff going, parts going, sorry.
Yeah, no, and that's where like a lot of it's, yeah, I've got the mainstay of companies that I've worked with, and I'll come up with an idea, they'll make a small change to it, and then we'll go with that. And then other stuff that they come and say, hey, this has been tested, we want to incorporate this over. And like, so it's amazing a lot of that stuff that's happened. And then once that stuff's tested, I mean, it's like, then it's available to pretty much everyone. So like, so it's kind of a catch-22. Like I look at it and say, yep, I was one of the people that helped develop all this stuff to be so reliable. But at the same point, I'm like, well, I just made it easy for all these other people, because like I had to go through all this crap to get here. And like, now you can go buy the same shit that I got. Like, so
that's true, which makes it harder for you to stay ahead of the game then.
So yeah, it makes it easier for that stuff to catch up. But I think that we've gone like with 2.0, like, I mean, it's gone to a level that, I mean, in whatever, 5 years ago with 1.0, this was probably said, like, is, well, actually, I know it was said that when I ran a 6 every day or whatever, they're like, oh, that's all you're ever going to see. Like, you're never going to see a 5-second pass. Well, now it's happened. And we're set up that if Drag Week would have happened this year, then Lord willing, we would have made a 5-second pass every day. So like, so it's came to that level. But I mean, I can say like, I don't think a 4 second's going to happen. Like, I don't, like, there's these things that you say that we've came so far that now you just start going back to the cool factor. So it's like, I've got a gasser project we're working on, but like different stuff to just go on the cool factor, because it's like, the bar can't go higher. I don't believe, maybe someday technology will come around that it can go higher, but I'm not seeing it right now. So therefore backing up and saying, okay, well, how fast can I make a gasser go? Like different stuff like that to just go cool rather than push the envelope.
The envelope the whole time. When I mean, your car's been on the cover of Hot Rod magazine.
Yep.
How did that change things on your side? I mean, when it released, I mean, you've got the fastest street legal car in the world. How did that change everything on your side?
I don't know how it changed. I mean, there definitely is the crazy factor that I remember, like 2010 or whatever, there was a postage size picture. Actually, a postage stamp might be making it bigger than it was, but there was a picture, like little thumbprint of my car. I bought like 5 issues of that magazine because I'm like, oh, that's so cool. My car's in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's like, well, unless it's on the cover, I don't even buy the issue, because it's like, but, and I mean, that's crazy to think like that. And I mean, it's just, that part's all cool. And it's like, how does whatever, like a nobody in the whole thing end up getting to where their car's been on magazines all over the world? And like, and that part's just, that's surreal. Like, I don't even know, like, how you describe it, because it's like everybody in my, like, call it inner circle, the people that work for me, and like and all my friends and stuff, like I'm just the same person I always was. But then like some strangers like, oh, well, that's Tom Bale. Like, it's like, yeah, that's not really that big a deal, guys. So,
but I mean, because I mean, God, that is the coolest title. You know, fastest street car in the world. You know, that's,
well, actually, I'm quickest. So
are you the quickest?
So, yeah, quickest is Andy Frost. So,
okay.
because he's been, I think, 262. I only went 259.7 or something as mile per hour. But um,
it is still absolutely phenomenal what you've done. But I mean, that must have changed for from your aspect, because all of a sudden your name's on the board, you know.
right.
Did you think that the first time that you guys were going to reach that, were you, or how can I put it, were you amazed when you got to drag week and you started going up against all these other guys and where you were sitting, you know, on
Oh
the
yeah, no,
leaderboard?
and that's well, and the thing is, like when I started 2010, which was my first year, and we made the drive, me and my buddy Rick or whatever, like we made the drive from the first track in Ohio or whatever to Indiana. So it was whatever, it was a couple 100-mile drive. And we did this in what was an 8-second car or whatever at the time. And actually an 8-second car that was running nines, but we made the drive. And when we got to the hotel, um, there was a grass curb or whatever there. And the first thing we did is we laid in the freaking grass. Like that was the hardest thing we'd ever done in our entire life, was make that 200-mile drive
Really?
in a 9-second car
Of
from one
course.
track to the next or whatever. Um, and then on the last day, um, I ended up whatever. I had a lifter come apart, get stuck in the block on 50 miles from the last track on the last day. So I didn't finish that first year. It was 50 miles from the last track when I was out. But then on the last day competition, at the end of competition, that's when Larry made the first 6-second pass. And I remember sitting there watching that or whatever happened. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, I cannot believe anybody would ever do that in a car they could drive on the street. Like, that's got to be so scary. That's got to be so crazy, like, for any of that stuff to happen. And then fast forward 3 years later, I'm making the freaking 6-second passes. But like, um, so, and that's where, like, anytime I think back to that, and I have I have like the picture in my mind of like laying down in that grass, like that's a vivid picture, the picture in my mind, watching that happen, the 6-second pass, and going like, wow, like that's just crazy that what I thought was unachievable became achievable and far surpassed that. Like, I mean, but just a cool thing.
So I need to ask. So you guys are doing these long trips, and like you said, you've got a few 100 miles between tracks. Is there anything in that car? Because I mean, obviously you worry about weight and all everything it goes. Was there any form of creature comfort that you went, oh God, after the first year going, all right, we are putting something back into it to make this more bearable, you know, or more enjoyable or anything like that? Was there any changes that you did to it?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're always making changes to try and get more airflow through the car, so it's not a freaking 130 degrees in there. Um, and my cars have always had cup holders and cigarette lighters and stuff like that for charging your phone and stuff. That's always been like a big deal with mine, is that they have those creatures. And the thing is, I got street cars, like I got everyday cars that don't have cup holders, but every one of my race cars always has at least 2 or 3 cup holders in it. Um, but so I mean, you got that stuff, and then just everything from the charging and the cooling standpoint and the switchover standpoint. Like when you get to the track, how do you make it easier? Like, I mean, things that over the years you've just done to make everything smoother. And I mean, I haven't had a car with air conditioning in it yet, but like that's one of those things that a lot of times you're like, man, how could I make that happen? I don't know.
I had the owner of what's it, Vintage Air, on the podcast. Maybe we speak to them and see if they don't have like a plug-in plug-out unit for you guys, and you stick it in under the dashboard for that mile and then pull it out again. Yeah,
Yep.
quick interchangeable AC unit, always work. Now, what's next for you guys going forward? I mean, from a build perspective, what's the next goal?
The 5 every day. I mean, that's obviously like, that's what I look at, is that final step that I don't think anything can go past that. So, so there's that. And then, like I said, just the cool factor. It's like, okay, well, how fast can I do with a gasser? And so we're working on a gasser project that'll have a big screw blown SMX in it that just to, I guess, when things start to get easy, you find a way to make it more complicated. So how can we make a screw blower last for 5 days on the street? So like, I mean, just things that I guess push you a little further to take something to the next level. So
What body are you using for the gasser?
55 Nomad.
Oh, 55 Nomad.
So
Oh, very nice, very nice. I'm very jealous. We actually, I think we only have like 4 Nomads in the whole of South Africa, and I think only one is a 55.
Gotcha. Yeah, and there was only a couple thousand of them made to begin with. So.
I know, which was weird to think that some of them have actually made all their way to Africa. And
right.
some of them were recent, but I know there's one that actually was here I think from the 1960s already. Gas's setup is obviously going to be much different to what you're running on the Camaro. I mean, are you running the full nose in the air system, the proper gas infrastructure?
Yep. Yeah, it'll be up there. Won't be super high. I mean, it'll definitely have the gasser stance to it, but obviously we got to think of aero a little bit. And then we're working on a way to bring that front end down as it's going down the track to try and give it a little more aerodynamics. So bring the back up, front down, kind of like if you watch the Radio versus the World cars and stuff like that go down the track and how they'll change to where that the back comes way up and the front gets sucked down even more is if we can do some of that to it to try and give it some aero as it's going down the track. So
do you
the goal to be able to run in the 6s with a gasser? So
you want to run in the 6s with that thing?
Yeah.
That
don't know if it's doable, but we'll see.
So. Listen, we in South Africa we're only hitting 6s at the moment now for the first time, you know, and that's like our big stuff. So to see a gasser run at 6, that's going to be absolutely crazy. If you look at yourself, like it's been like over 10 years now. Would you have imagined you're sitting in the spot where you have, I mean, the amount of knowledge you must have built up and how fast everything's building up. I mean, was it blowing your mind with where you are now compared to where you were?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you sit there, like, I mean, time moves quick, but also time moves slow. And you sit there and you look at it and, I mean, where you're at and the people that look to you for stuff or whatever, and you're like, I'm no different than I was before, but yet on the big stage for doing what you've done or whatever, then yeah, I mean, you get a lot of that and you're like, wow, like how did that, and I mean, it's mostly like friends or something. They'll be somewhere and they'll be like, oh, I saw this guy was wearing a Tom Bailey shirt or whatever. And it's like, and they were in like Tennessee, like they were 10 states away. And they're like, it's just, that part's just crazy because it's like, to me, every day is still the same day as it was before, but there's that. I mean, I can't imagine like from a true celebrity standpoint, like how those people deal with it, because I like to wear like you know me, or like people in the racing circle know me. Like what I don't want is the general public that I'm at the grocery store and like this person's like, oh, da da da. I'm like,
interfering with you when you're trying to eat McDonald's or something. Yeah, I know.
Exactly, and that doesn't interfere with me right now. I can still go to McDonald's and almost nobody knows me there. So.
I think and for a position like you, it's when the people that you look up to all of a sudden know who you are. You know, that I think that's when the change, when you know you're arriving somewhere, you know, is the people that you looked up to getting into racing and that type of stuff, and all of a sudden you walk up to them and they know exactly who you are and what you've achieved. You know.
Yep. And that's the part that's crazy. Is like you go to the track or whatever, and you haven't been to that track before, and you have all kinds of people around you, like talking to you, like they've known you for years, and they know you from social media or from a magazine. You don't know this person to recognize them, and then at the same point, you got friends on your list like David Freiberger or Richie Crampton or Johnny Lindbergh, and like all these guys that like you hang out with, but I mean, these are the real stars. Like in my eyes, these guys have they've won Wally. Like they've done all this stuff. Like that's way up there.
You still get nervous when you talk to them, you know?
Exactly. So.
Exactly. And then you've got these weird guys in other countries that send you WhatsApp, Facebook messages and wants to talk to you, you know, because we look up to you and you're like, I mean, South Africa, they actually know who I am. But yeah, you've got a big following on this side. There's a lot of guys that, like I said, when Drag Week started pushing out and stuff on this side, the amount of guys that were talking about your car was just phenomenal. You know, you guys set this new benchmark of what guys want to achieve more than anything, because it was always this massive, that's pro stock. But as soon as you guys were hitting the street, and it just changed that facet of the whole thing, if I want to put it that way. I think facet's the right word.
Yeah, no, and it's and that part's crazy. Like it was like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, me and my boys went to Australia, like over the holidays for a couple weeks. Well, we went to Australia or whatever, and well, we were there for 2 weeks or whatever. All I did is hang out with other racers over there that knew me, like that I never met before. And then I go over there and like, so it's like, you feel like you got the grand tour, and like, and they're taking your places, and like you get to see all the stuff from their perspective, like as an Australian, not from the normal American goes over there as a tourist perspective. And it's the same with me and my boy. Last Thanksgiving we went to Saudi Arabia for, like, there was a big car show thing over there, and 2 of my cars got shipped over for it and everything. And
that was just off the SEMA, wasn't it? For that
yeah. And went over there, and the first day, like at it, like guy comes up and says, "Oh, Tom Bailey," or whatever, like, and talk to the guy. Well, end up that, and over there they don't have tourists, like, at all. Like, it just, tourist visas just came about, like, I think for the event, like just different stuff that they're trying to open it up. But so we hung out with them and other car guys. So then, while some of the people that were over there for this, they were just at their hotel every day because there was nothing else to do because there's no tourist stuff. Shit, we were in the desert with these guys riding razors, and like we were doing all kinds of stuff. And like, I'm like, that's the part where it's like really cool. It's like when you go, like, to me, like in the States, it's still cool, but like the fact that whatever, I'm talking to you in South Africa, and like, you know who I am, but like, okay, everybody else within 5-mile radius of me probably doesn't have a clue of anyone that is in South Africa. So like, and that's the part that's cool.
Really cool.
If there's that many people following, I got to plan a trip to South Africa so I can go see it from the car guys. You
are welcome. You are welcome. I know a bunch of guys that's probably going to be listening to this are jumping up and down. With the absolute pleasure. If you want to come through, just you tell us when. We'll make it happen for you. When you went to Australia, did you go check out their summer nats?
Summer nats were the week after I left. And that's where I would have been a better planner than, because that's the thing, is I knew a lot of people that were going to the summer nats that from here go over there. And it was poor planning on my part. But yep, that's something I definitely want to go through. And that's the thing, is like I hung out with a lot of those guys that do the Aussie burnouts at the summer nats. And like, and it's like, yeah, disappointing.
I have to. South Africa and Australia, we have a constant feud with when it comes to rugby and cricket and all this type of stuff. And the fact that half of South Africa actually lives in Australia now. So we always have feuds, and you know, we always make jokes like I'd love to go to Australia. The only problem is it's full of Australians. But I've got a bunch of friends and stuff there. And I always say to them, summer nats. I have to go see summer nats. That must be one of the craziest events in the world at the moment.
Oh yeah, and those guys are insane over there. So hanging out with those guys, and the same as the Australians that come over here for Drag Week, and I mean, it's just that, and seeing to go to Sweden for what's the big race that they do there, like.
What's that one called? I've actually seen that. But they've got some crazy cars and stuff in Sweden as well. Oh, yeah. But not like, but it's not the stuff that you would think of. It's not like cars. US drags is the biggest thing. So you're always expecting Camaros and Mustangs and all this type of stuff. You're hitting Sweden, it's Volvos and all these crazy things you've never thought. And it's not all V8s as well. Yeah.
Right, but they've got that, man, I can't think of the name of it. Like, I've watched the videos of it and everything, but like it happens one night, and like there's races on, the Stockholm Open.
Yes.
like that's just an insane thing. If you've watched any of the videos on it, like it's just crazy. And then some of the Swedes that come over for drag week or whatever, like I didn't know until after they're here and like hang out with them and stuff. And then I watch Stockholm Open. I'm like, oh, you guys are in there. Like now you guys are like famous to me because I'm watching you guys do this Stockholm Open thing that's one night and like 10 rounds of racing or whatever, like all over the city, and they're blocking cops from chasing them and like
They're
all this
blocking
stuff.
the highways and the freeways. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yep. I'm just like, man, that is so cool. I'd like to be there for that.
I've been working slowly but surely on a project because I own the only hot rod magazine in South Africa called SA Hot Rods, and then I do some TV stuff as well. And we were sitting there one day, and I said I want to go find racing all over Africa. I'm like, because it's the old story. If there's two cars, there's racing happening. You know,
Right.
there must be. I want to go see everywhere else who's racing what type of cars, because it's phenomenal for me always to find out what the guys are actually doing and how they're achieving that. You know, like when they look at Cuba and the guys running boat motors and stuff and their hot rods and stuff on that side. You know, just to see how the area adapts in order to achieve what they need to do with the resources that's available to them. I think it's just a fascinating story the whole time. I mean, but we've got I know I think he was not there last year, the year before. We've got a BMW here called group's called Bueller. They've got the fastest running BMW in the world, South African guys. They came over they ran the Heltec, which is for World Final with you guys. They came over for that. And I think they're running 6 seconds with a BMW, with a BM motor. And then we've got a lot of the guys running 2JZs and this type of stuff. V8s we don't have a lot of the V8 guys from our side. Our drag racing is quite different. I had a friend Ian Repsol on the show the other day, and we were talking about it because we had apartheid, so you kind of race what you know, and we didn't have the big V8 cars. We didn't have Mustangs and Camaros. I think we only got Mustangs back in South Africa in 2017. Mustangs came back. Yeah, we still don't have Camaros. We don't. GM is not even in South Africa anymore. How sad is that? We have no Camaro, no Chevys, and the Chevys that we had were crappy ones. These little four bangers that they're running out. The closest car, the only V8 we had from a Chevy perspective was the Lumina, which was the Holden, like the Holden's. What's the SR? Yep. Yeah, we had those in South Africa, but Pontiac looked like the Pontiac I think that you guys had. That was all we had. So we had a big Japanese and German influence in South Africa. So there's a lot of 2JZs and that type of stuff that was running here. And the guys are pulling stupid power out of these things, eh?
Oh yeah, no, and I've done some import versus domestic races or whatever, like that they have over here, and it's like, man, like you look at those cars and like, I mean, it put me on the wish list that, hey, I want one of those someday. Like whether it's just when the turbo is as big as the engine and like you're getting 1,000 horsepower out of this damn thing and it's whatever, 1.3 cubes. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean,
no, definitely.
Some people are like annoyed. They're like, oh, well, the way they spool and like all that popping it, like it's just, no, it's not a V8 deal, but it's still cool. Like,
exactly.
I mean, I tried on whatever, like one of our websites or whatever, but like a Mazda pickup with a rotary, like whatever. I'm like, those look so amazing. I'd love that. Like from the factory, it came with a rotary engine, and I'm like, man, that would be cool to have. Like
exactly.
Just the cool factor. It's insane.
I think that's when you know you're a complete petrol head, when you like everything. Everything's interesting. You know, I was shooting in Durban the other day, and I got into a Nissan Skyline, the R32.
Sure.
It was running 900 and something horses, 4-wheel drive. I mean, I think it's just crazy. The guy needed 2 lanes to go down the road. I mean, the boost and stuff on that thing, it just blows your mind back. And he's
Well,
only
and
getting
Skyline, isn't the Skyline the one that was banned in the US for many years? Like you couldn't even get one in here. So like that's like the sought after car over here is a Skyline, because like that's the predecessor to like the GTR or something.
Yeah,
like,
yes, the R32. There was we've got a company that's importing Skylines from I think they're coming in from Japan at the moment. But the pricing on them just jumped like crazy. I think in the last 3 years they've almost tripled in price. On the R34, the Godzillas.
right.
But and then a friend of mine posted the other day, there was one that just sold for almost $1 million. It was one of one, the special Skyline that was built, which was just absolutely insane. And a guy was telling me, actually, I met a guy, he was going to say he's got a R34. Nissan actually, at one stage, if you had an R34, you could ship your car back to the factory for a full rebuild.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I was amazed. They had a thing going, I think it's when they launched the new Skyline, where you could ship your R34, especially the special editions, and they would do a full nut and bolt resto on your car.
Wow.
I don't know what the price tag was on that. Obviously, it must be big. But all new bushes, they bring your car and run through the whole car, tighten everything, replace all the bushes and everything, and send it back to you.
Wow. That's pretty cool, especially if you were in the snow belt area where they salt the roads and there's not much of the car left. So,
you just drop off the top part.
You replace all the body panels and everything too. So.
Yeah, exactly. That would be safe. So I know you're a busy man, and I thank you so much for talking to me. It was absolutely such an honor to talk to you. And I know there was no drag week this year, but next year you back? Are you going all the way in again?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we look forward to watching you, and let's hope you can get to that 4. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much for having you on the show, man. It was great talking to you.
Man.
All right.
I'll let you know when I come to South Africa. So.
Oh, you got my email and everything now. You send me a message. I'll take you to the best safaris. We'll have braais. And in South Africa, they call it branas and braais, which is brandy and barbecues. And we'll take you some wildlife, and we'll do all the South African things. All right.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thanks,
Cheers.
Bye.